What if consistency isn't hard because you're lazy, but because the maintenance is so expensive? The internet loves to show us the rewards of consistency. The glowing skin, body tea, successful career, aesthetic apartment, soft life, hard life, luxury life, your life, this life, discipline, that girl transformation. But what we don't talk about enough is the actual maintenance cost that goes into consistency. The grocery runs, the exhaustion, budgeting, boring repetition, emotional labor. And honestly, the days where you feel like you do everything right, you checked everything off your checklist, but you still feel 5 paces behind. But honestly, truly, honestly,
I wouldn't lie to you, truly.
Adulthood is just slowly but surely realizing that beautiful lives don't happen naturally. There's a lot of maintenance required. But I don't think giving up on building a beautiful life is the answer. Not at all. I think the real challenge that we're facing right now is how to build one sustainably, bringing back substance, depth, and character to why we love, share, and buy products. As someone who loves all things beauty, wellness, thrift, and vintage fashion, but most importantly, culturally rich experiences, I've been craving something that feels like the cross between a Substack article and a traditional YouTube video. So I created it. Welcome back to the Mac Edit. My name is Nia Mac. If you're not chronically online like the rest of us, good for you. However, I am here to catch you up and to catch you up to speed. The internet has been going to town, beefing right now heavy about blush.
Go deeper.
Wait, stay with me.
Stay with me now.
It sounds so unserious. I promise you it does. I understand there's a lot going on in the world, but there's actually a very, very important conversation that's going on with this whole blush conversation right now. And yes, I mean blush as in the one that you put on your face, your makeup. And so while this conversation sounds unserious, until you realize that the real conversation underneath is about authorship, influence, and recognition. So many makeup techniques that we think of that we got from TikTok and YouTube and this and the third. Like, I grew up in the 2016 makeup era, okay? If you were there, you're there. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. You can go back and look. I'm sure the videos are there, okay? We grew up with the makeup Shaylas, the Jackie Ainas. I understand how the makeup trends boom and bust and they just take over the world. And TikTok has now done that as well with different makeup techniques, different styles of makeup, different trends, right? But so many of these techniques were created decades ago by working artists behind the scenes, experimenting behind the scenes on film sets, makeup, magazines, photo shoots. And they were brought into the mainstream through different social media platforms like YouTube, like TikTok. Before I even step my toe into the arena regarding Painted by Esther, Patrick Ta, and the whole transition blush beef, first, it is so important that you understand who Kevin Aucoin is in the makeup industry. If you've never heard that name, don't worry, I've got you, okay? Kevin Aucoin was the go-to makeup artist for supermodels, okay? We're talking about the supermodel era, the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, okay? We're talking about Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell, Janet Jackson, hell, okay? Oprah. He was doing everybody's makeup. The girls who were on the covers, he was doing their makeup. Kevin Aucoin was a legendary makeup artist, author, photographer, and he's widely accredited with establishing makeup artistry as its own form of respected art, as an actual profession, getting paid to really go out there and do people's makeup. And he was really made famous for bringing transformative beauty to the forefront, like contouring techniques. He's the founder. And he was also a very passionate advocate about making content and making things that were accessible for everyday women to do their makeup, and also for the LGBTQ plus community. When we talk about iconic, okay, darling, iconic in the makeup and beauty world, you have to include Kevin Aucoin in the conversation. Now, fast forward to 2026, and when you're sitting on your couch scrolling boop to the bop, and you can't even escape one, like if you follow any makeup influencer, I'm sure you've seen this beef right now that has to do with Painted by Esther and Patrick Ta. And really there should be no beef because this is a classic case of what happens when culture remembers or uplifts the person who's going to monetize and commercialize something that an entire culture or person helped to shape in the first place. Now, if you don't know who Painted by Esther is, she is a Black British makeup artist who has worked her way up through college, basically scrapping together her money and building up an amazing clientele that honestly, girl, speaks for itself. You know that something is really attached to your influence when someone sees something and they say, yeah, she did it. Painted by Esther was on the beat. That's how you know. She does SZA, Ray, Kelly Rowland, just to name a few of the iconic faces, Olandria, that she has done their makeup, and you're like, yes, that was a Painted by Esther face, because she does this iconic blush technique. Yes, developing techniques is hard to really trace down who quite literally was the originator, but we can subjectively surmise that she was the one who normalized it and popularized it in culture. So much so that when the girls on TikTok would make makeup videos, they would say, I'm recreating the Painted by Esther look. And her influence reached farther than she could even imagine. Now, Patrick Ta in his own right has really worked his way up to be an incredible celebrity makeup artist. Again, through the ranks of posting your content, recognizing work, and really catching the eyes of others and wanting them to do their makeup. Being a renowned celebrity makeup artist, he definitely has his pulse on the finger of what's going on online and just on the culture in general, but also has more of a business and foundational reach that Painted by Esther may not necessarily have at this point. It's also worth noting that Patrick Ta has co-founded his own beauty line, Patrick Ta Beauty. So you can see why when you're a makeup artist who's done the faces of Gigi, Bella Hadid, Ariana Grande, and of course the Kardashians, you have wide reach in the beauty and business aspect. Now, this is where things get a little messy. Patrick Ta recently expanded his blush collection to include transition blushes, where there's basically a liquid base of a foundation and then corresponding powder foundations to lay on top of it with a technique that he details that is strangely, eerily, exactly the same as our good sis, Painted by Esther. Again, what makes this even more messy is that Patrick Ta went and trademarked transition blush. Since we're talking about blush, I would not be doing my due diligence during a Mac edit if I didn't put you onto my blush combo, okay? This is probably one of my most complimented blush combos that I get. One product, you see it in my hand, you already know what it is. We're gonna come back to this, okay? We're gonna come back because I want to put you on to a woman of color owned brand that this product has single-handedly, not even kidding you, changed my makeup, my blush experience. It's an experience. This is the Dahaya, the lip and cheek tint in the color The Queen. Let me show you. When I tell you this is the most pigmented product I have ever, ever. This blows all the other ones on the market out of the water I have ever seen. Obviously, it's used and abused right now, but when I tell you this is so pigmented, you need to just dab it on so ever gingerly. And why I love it even more, not only because it's a woman of color owned brand, because it's vegan, it's clean product, and the packaging is recyclable. It is like, it checks all the good boxes that you can do for your skin and for the world. Like, I just love that. Anytime you can buy a product and it really just does more, okay? Conscious consumerism. Love it. Miss Haley Rhode, believer to the front. I, again, was not a Rhode stan, okay? I did not run out with the rest of the girls and get Rhode products because I just like what I like, and it didn't feel absolutely necessary, right? But this Toasted Teddy blush, I am really impressed by her. I do wish she was more pigmented, not going to lie, especially for our deeper, darker skin tone loves like myself. However, this is a really interesting shade because I feel like so many shades of blush are the pinks, the purples, the oranges, you know, like they really pop. It's sometimes you just want something a little bit more than your bronzer. So this combo makes it look like you just got out of the sun in like an early summer day. You're about to get like a little bit of a sunburn, but not too much, like you didn't actually burn. So I love this for like a amazing spring, summer blush combo. Love. And I know one thing is for sure, and how we can take away from this situation as innocent bystanders, is even beauty itself spreads through reinterpretation. Somebody experiments, somebody adapts it, somebody commercializes it, and eventually it becomes widespread in the culture. So I think one of the hidden costs of our discipline and of our artistry is that we have to wrap our minds around the idea that moving culture forward and the influence that you can have in your own life and in the world can be bigger than your own name. And honestly, I think what strikes a chord for me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of us with the whole Painted by Esther situation, for those who are tracking, who are clocking it, is a lot of us quietly experience this feeling. I'm sure at work, I'm sure in your family, different situations, in relationships, in life, period, where you contribute to environments where you will never fully get credit. So I think that's where I ask myself, how can I not always make things about my own personal recognition, and how can I get the fulfillment that I need out of what I'm doing, whether someone utters my name about it or not? I also think it really beautifully and unfortunately highlights the fact that grinding and doing the work and actually putting in change, that when things hit the fan and when it's time to actually recognize who is the culture shifters and shakers and movers, the people are going to recognize you. People are going to recognize you. People are going to come to bat for you, because it may not always be loud support that you're going to get in your endeavors, but so many people are rooting for you, even if it's just silently. And this just also goes to show about the different capacity that people have to support you. Some people may not be able to afford your product. Some people may not be able to show up for you and have those words of affirmation that you are really seeking, because they don't necessarily have the tools in their toolbox to show up for you in that way. All in all, to say, don't be discouraged if your name is not being called just yet, because when the time has come, you'll be recognized. And I think where adulthood gets heavier, like that quarter life crisis feeling, if you will, is once you come to that realization, there's like a light bulb moment that starts to go off for you when you realize how much invisible labor actually goes into a beautiful life. And just like 2 weeks ago, I went to go see Devil Wears Prada 2. And of course, I've seen Devil Wears Prada, the first one, at least a million times at this point. But I'm pretty sure one of the reasons that that movie even had a part 2 and resonates so deeply even 20 something years later is because it quietly understands and demonstrates the emotional cost of our ambition. Let's take our good sis, Miranda Priestley, for example. Okay, Miss Bob. She seems emotionally cold, distant, a perfectionist at times, most times. She has this clear motherhood tension where she recognizes she's not there for her family in certain ways because she's always working and she's always on. Quite publicly and very privately goes through a very difficult divorce and just overall has a lot of responsibility on her shoulders, so much so that she's so visible that she feels invisible. Miss Miranda is a good example that people, me and you included, especially online, especially on social media, we always admire the outcome without asking what it took and what it sustained for them to get to that outcome. Now, I don't think at my big young age, if we're being honest, that work-life balance is necessarily a thing, especially at some stages of your life, right? Some are going to take, some are going to give, but it's not always going to be completely harmonious, right? I think every meaningful life structure has its trade-offs, has its pros and its cons, you know? For me, this has showed up so much in conversations around motherhood or prospective motherhood. Something I really resonated that I saw online recently were women mothers sharing the cost that it takes for them to buy their village. The childcare costs, the housing costs, different needs and necessities and resources that families are paying for to build that village around them. As we know, the saying is it takes a village, and I am definitely a product of that. I was raised by like a motley crew, if you will, a village that really was knit together to meet my needs. A motley crew of my grandpa, who's my favorite person on this entire planet. My mom, of course, my uncles, my aunts, second cousins removed. So I really deeply understand and resonate when people say they need a village in order to take care of their children, because I would not be standing here without my village, truly. So even as I'm at my big, wonderful, young, fresh age, I think having a village is so core to that analysis. And some of these videos that I've seen have really hit home because I love how women are sharing what it really is taking now in a more modern age in order to raise children. If you don't have, let's say, a built-in village of parents that are close by, family, relatives, or even just a setup that makes sense for you to have children in that environment. Sometimes it's not always that easy and straightforward as it seems when people are announcing their pregnancy announcements, gender reveals, baby showers, this, that, and the third. It takes so much more emotional, financial, and physical labor, I think, in a different day and age than it did before. So if you're lacking support systems for motherhood, you have to pay for one. Like childcare in New York City, for example, can exceed, and I mean greatly exceed, just off the rip, $20,000 to $25,000 a year. And I ain't even got no kids.
I was shocked, honey. I was in tears almost. And it has a white refrigerator. I was like, oh, not a white refrigerator. Girl, please put your shoes on. Let's go find you a home, honey. Ooh.
And that's crazy. And just in general, we can see, especially in America, we live so much farther typically from our parents at this point, and extended support systems are not as readily available as they used to be when families were a lot more nuclear. So for me, as I weigh those costs, literally and figuratively, what sticks with me is that we've been convinced that people should be able to perform collective labor with individual resources. And that's another part of the maintenance cost, not because I don't value family, but because adulthood eventually forces you to to face your own infrastructure. How much time do you have? What do your support networks look like? Dude, how much energy do you have? What kind of community do you have? Where do you live? And just your financial capacity. Especially in terms of motherhood, again, I'm nobody's mama but my dog. But a lot about what we show online in terms of consistency makes it sound like it's purely a personality trait. Like that person is just so consistent, they're rocking it, they're crushing it, yes. But a lot of consistency is so deeply structural. You have to build the systems if you don't have them. If you don't have them, then you're kind of 2 steps behind. There's so much that goes into building the structures that allow you to be consistent. So don't forget that, okay? It's not just you. It's everything that's around you and supporting you. Sometimes what looks like discipline from the outside, from the routine videos, from the polished, curated feeds, it's actually support systems that are functioning correctly from the inside. Now, I'm probably a little biased here, but we definitely see this invisible labor, okay? In cities, in the big cities, especially in the big New York City, you know what I'm saying? Because there is a cost to creating culture. Brooklyn is one of the most influential incubators in modern American life. Fashion, music, culture, art, food, identity, and entire aesthetics came out of Brooklyn before it was even marketable online. People love consuming culture long before respecting the communities where it actually came from. Por ejemplo, let's paint the scene. The culture is there, the scene is set. It becomes desirable. And then we make it so inaccessible and unaffordable that the people who actually built the culture can no longer afford to stay there. But if living in New York teaches me anything, is that joy is a discipline too. You can feel it in the palpable energy here. You can feel it in the people here. You can feel it in the food, in the way we move, in the way we shake. It just inspires you to live your life and get out there and do stuff regardless of the circumstances. That's why there's the saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, because truly it's expensive as hell, but you don't pay for the living, you pay for the experience. So if you're a person who loves experiences, don't worry, I got you. Let me put you on to some of my favorite places. I'm going to do a nod to some of the staples and a nod to some of the new places. If you're ever in Brooklyn, these are probably some places that you may not have heard of, but I think you need to check out. Super dope place I love to go for just a sunny, cool, vibey afternoon, especially if you want something chill to do, meet up with a girlfriend, go on a little date, or just have some quiet time to yourself, a perfect solo date vibe, is Liz's Book Bar. Liz's Book Bar is a Black-owned, woman-owned cafe. Great curation of books, nonfiction, fiction, poetry, history. And it's a cafe and wine bar, so you can go get you a cup of coffee, you can go have you a little glass of wine, you can sit in some of the cool chairs, just kick back, relax, introduce yourself, meet some people at the bar. And also they host different events. They have book clubs. They do something what's called Lectures on Tap, which is an event series that's put on around the city, and this is one of the hosts for it. Went there last summer for this Lectures on Tap. It was called Ladies First, Women, Power, and Hip Hop. Absolutely blew my mind. It was put on by a professor who has her doctorate from St. John's University. Her name is Dr. Kimberly Kokula, and she did a wonderful job. So if you're looking for some kind of place to go chill, just be on a good vibe and walk away with a nice cozy book, Liz's Book Bar in Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn, fire. Love that place. Now, another place that you probably have not heard of, but has truly some of the most fire food that is not your typical. This place is called Maloya, and it's such a unique blend of French Creole cuisine. It's a husband and wife, and they literally make everything there from scratch, fresh every day. Everything always hits every single time. I've gone there so many times, and every time it hits. You know, you have to have those places where no matter who you bring there or what you do, the food is consistently good, amazing, flavors are deep, and it's like nothing you've ever had, but also remind you of all the staples in your own cuisine. That's Maloya. And to give you a little context, the Reunion Island is a French territory in the Indian Ocean, so they blend French, African, and Asian cuisines. It reminds me so much of my West Indian foods. It reminds me so much of my African American foods. It's just such a good little vibe. And it's not one of those places that you need to have crazy reservations. You can just walk in, be cozy, and have such a good meal. Now, if you're looking for historic Brooklyn, one of the first things that's going to come to your mind is bagels, but let me add a little twist. Acme Smoked Fish is a historic family-owned smoked fish company here in Brooklyn. And honestly, you can probably find a lot of their smoked fish maybe in a grocery store near you, especially in the northeast area of the US. But they do smoked salmon, smoked trout, smoked whitefish, And they do something called Fish Friday, where they basically sell their wholesale prices to the public. So people line up for blocks to go get their smoked fish, especially before the holidays. And they supply some of the most famous bagel shops in New York City with their smoked fish. So if you're looking for a smoked fish, lox, bagel, something like that, that's probably where they're getting it from. And something that's been around since literally the 50s, and you've definitely seen this before if you're looking to come to Brooklyn, is Junior's Cheesecake. And while they have multiple locations now, not much has changed. And honestly, the cheesecake is actually bussin'. So you can get your original New York cheesecake and then some other desserts while you're at it. A few honorable nods. Definitely go check out the Brooklyn Museum. I absolutely love the Brooklyn Museum. You already know they have such good exhibits, especially since everyone always goes to the Met. Go to the Brooklyn Museum and then walk through Prospect Park. It's like the perfect way to spend a Saturday. And just like strolling through the park on a sunny Saturday afternoon in Brooklyn, I think one of the biggest flexes is even when life gets hard, things get difficult, remembering to have a softness about you. Remember to have a light in your heart, especially in a world and a digital age that is feeding you stuff that's constantly trying to hard you or make you always want to optimize. And maybe that's why we've become so fascinated with excellence, optimization, and being this billboard perfection, because consistency looks so effortless from far away. Now, Miss Beyonce, let's go back a couple of tours. Okay, let's go back a couple of tours. I think one of the reasons why Beyonce's Homecoming documentary on Netflix really took over, because it pulled back the curtain on a lot of the maintenance cost that it took for her to get that level of perfection in her performances, in her tours, the excellence that she demands. We saw her going through basically like postpartum recovery, rehearsals, physical stamina that it takes to be Beyonce, the repetition, the precision, the discipline. And Beyonce is a great representation of what it looks like to always have the polished outcome. But for you and me, we need to remember that maintenance is really not cinematic in real time. It's actually kind of ugly. It's actually not cute. So most of us are not lacking Beyonce level potential. We're lacking the sustainable infrastructure. And I think, especially for me, that's why discipline feels so chaotic sometimes. As someone who was so naturally undisciplined and just all over the place, I would say I was a type BC, and now I'm like a AB. 1, 2, 3. It's because repetition was not glamorous. It was not cute. I'm like, why can't I just be one and done, boom to the bang? And you can definitely fall into this trap when you're naturally good at something. It's the things that you're not naturally good at that you actually have to get down in the weeds and get dirty with, do repeatedly to get good at it. That's where the friction comes. And nobody claps for repetition. Nobody claps for repetition. They just want to see the polished product. Discipline gets romanticized online because we love a breakout moment. We love to see when it pops off, but not the repetition it took to get there. Often people are finding you and encountering you when you're at your breakthrough moment, not your breakdown moment. Like even Serena Williams, for example, absolute legend of a tennis player. We knew her story, but I think when King Richard came out about more of her childhood life and how much rigorous repetition and work and scrutiny she was put under as a young child to even get to the places that her and Venus got to, it really shed a lot of light of the deep entrenched work and maintenance that it takes to have that kind of longevity. And you can say all you want to say about the commercials that she's in right now. That's none of my business right now. We're talking about Serena, the tennis player. She didn't stay great because of just 1 or 2 really good performances or because of her natural talent. She stayed great because she treated it like basic upkeep, not just a special event. And that's not to say everything we have to do ever has to be GOAT level status, but I think treating our maintenance like a baseline is so important and not something that's talked about. Even at the very top of the world, she still trained like someone who's trying to prove herself. You gotta have that dog in you. So much of the internet makes us think that yes, boom, 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 things can happen so fast, and they can. Prayerfully, God willing, things can move, shake in a minute, right? But you still have to keep that same hunger. Remember that instant gratification isn't always the answer. Even as she progressed in her career, she also progressed as a mother, as a woman, as a businesswoman, all of these things. So the pressure, things didn't get lighter. Life didn't get easier for her to up her maintenance. She had to keep pressing through. And even for us, I hate to break it to you. I hate to break it to myself because I'd be saying it all the time. I'm like, damn, things ain't really slowing down, are they? So you can't rely on feeling ready all the time. You have to rely back on your maintenance, on the cost of your discipline. And what you're calling as inconvenient right now or inconsistent is really just discomfort that you haven't normalized yet. You haven't normalized having a level of discomfort and effort in your life. So I challenge you to just push it just a little bit. And we already talked about the gap between your inspiration and your action, but what about the maintenance and the discipline? It's usually just 1,000 small moments, just everyday daily joys and daily hard work that is the difference between where you want to go. And I honestly used to think that discipline was about pushing harder, going harder. I have to do everything, right? But that's really just pride packaged in another way. But at the highest level, it came from something quieter, just maintaining, just getting your head down and realizing this is a part of the life that you are actually building toward. The beautiful life that you imagine and are living in and have prayed for, it's really right here. You just have to do the job and the effort to maintain it. What do you want to do so you don't drift away from yourself? Because if you've ever had that feeling where you wake up in the morning and you don't necessarily recognize your life, you feel so disassociated, the hard work to get back to feeling like yourself is much harder than just focusing on maintenance and really protecting yourself in the process. Again, because we're hot, young, wild, and free, and especially with the summertime coming up, the days are longer, the vibes are higher. Go to sleep. Okay, if you're watching this and me and you are probably around a similar age or two, and even if we're not, go to sleep. Go to sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things for our brain health, for our mental health, for our physical health, for everything that has to do with everything. But I find personally that sleep is one of the first things to go for me. I had to find out what my sleep chronotype was. And if you're wondering what a sleep chronotype is, I love this assessment. It validates and really helps you understand what kind of person you are in terms of your wake and energy levels and sleep levels. I am a night owl. If I'm up between like 10 and 2 a.m., my best juices are flowing.
Pause, we'll start there.
I've probably thought of some of these ideas that I'm talking about in my Mac edits in the middle of the night, like howling at the moon. Funny enough, because that's my sleep chronotype, is a wolf. So for me, I need to set up my day to where I can optimize my hours, where I feel most peak productive, but also optimize my rest. Really leaning into understanding your natural cadences can help you so much in terms of your maintenance. You really could just be fighting against yourself by waking up late, staying up too late, and then you're making the rest of your day groggy and a piece of shite. Don't work against yourself. If you're trying to build a good maintenance routine for yourself and build a good discipline routine, you can't work against yourself. You can't fight against yourself. Don't make it harder for yourself. Now, granted, I know, don't get me wrong, I know that we have different work routines, schedules, all that stuff. I get it, working 2, 3, 4 jobs, kids, responsibilities, but where you can prioritize rest, please, I'm begging you to do so. Rest isn't what you do after the work is done. Rest truly makes the work possible. If your output depends on you constantly pushing, hear me, you're on a ticking time bomb. Ticking time bomb. We wear this badge of honor when we get to burnout, like, yes, I gave it all I could. Yeah, you did, but it also was a signal that you didn't stop when you were supposed to. Like, that Serena level of discipline doesn't just come when she's practicing on the tennis court. It's the rest, it's the recovery, it's the maintenance, it's the training. I feel like we don't need any more motivation. We need permission to stop treating our exhaustion as proof of our worth. That's something I saw so much growing up, that if you didn't have something on your schedule, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're grinding out here. Especially if you grew up similar to that, I think that's something a lot of us are working through, of just being able to sit our behind down and rest. Through creating content, through my career, through my relationships, through life, that at a certain point, you get to that point where you look yourself in the mirror and I say, the most productive thing that I can do right now is nothing. Because whatever I'm going to produce right now is not going to be it. It's not going to hit the spot. So I just need to take a step back and reevaluate. I need to rest. So if you're at that point, I see you and I love you, and please make sure you take a step back. Invisible labor is still counting. Some of the most important seasons in your life look so unimpressive from the outside. Graduation day looks really cool when you have your robe on, but the late nights when you were up submitting an assignment at 11:59 p.m., not glamorous. The wedding photos look really cute, but the sessions of premarital counseling where you're having to figure out your family dynamics, not as cute. Paying off debt and your credit score going up, great, but saying no to all your plans and really having to downsize, not as cute. Healing mentally and showing up with that glow and smile on your face, amazing, wonderful, I love it. But the tears on your pillow at night, not as cute. So recognition and value are not always happening at the same speed. One of the tools that I feel like sharpened really heavily in my late 20s is learning to advocate for myself. You have to learn how to advocate for yourself. The quicker that you realize that we're all playing this game, okay, we're all playing, I don't know, Monopoly Life, something, we're playing a game, right? You really start realizing it's not always about who's working the hardest, it's about who's playing the game. This social currency, if you will. You have to learn how to articulate your value. In the most semi-humble and respectful way, you have to attach your name to your work. You have to go out there and advocate for yourself. I think, if anything, the Painted by Esther situation has taught us that, because even in her video where she addressed address the situation, she was like, I'm afraid to even put this out here, so I'm afraid to speak up for myself because it may be weaponized against me. There's a certain level of confidence that comes when you practice these disciplines well before the moment calls for it. And my goal, and even I hope one of your goals, is to not necessarily build a life that is just impressive just because people think it's impressive, but really build a life that feels sustainable and consistently impactful. So many of the things that we see around us are built by architects in the background, really the architects behind the sound, if you will. Pharrell is one of the most influential American music artists, producers, singers, fashion designers. He's wrapped up in so much artistry. Some of the most influential people in our culture are not always the loudest in our culture. While yes, Pharrell is on a lot of songs, there's so many more songs that you wouldn't even know unless you know. Like if you know that Pharrell is actually the complete architect behind some of your favorite artists: Justin Timberlake, Gwen Stefani, Snoop Dogg, Britney Spears. He truly has written, produced, engineered for so many people. And the pimps in the crib, ma, drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot. And even though he's beefing with him right now, his partner in crime in the Neptunes, Chad, they engineered and produced so many early hits. Now Pharrell has moved on to be the men's creative director at Louis Vuitton, which again just goes to show your artistry can have no bounds as long as you just continue putting in the work. It's less about the visibility. It's not really about who sees it, but it's more about the deep impact of your contribution consistently. Like some people quietly shape entire eras and you'll never really hear their name at the forefront. And if you know, you know. So I say all of this to say, I think one of the biggest lies that the internet tells us is that a beautiful life is just so easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. And if that's you, I love that for you. If you like it, I love it. As long as we're not harming anybody. But the reality is, for most of us, they don't. Relationships require maintenance. Bodies require maintenance. And not at Dr. Miami. Creativity requires maintenance. Mental health requires a lot of freaking maintenance, and community requires maintenance. Consistency is so freaking expensive, but I think there's something so deeply meaningful across all of this for me and for you, is that you have to continue to care about building a beautiful life. Even when nobody applauds the maintenance, nobody sees the background work, nobody sees the invisible labor and cost that go into your influence, your impact, and your success. And this is where life eventually stops becoming about performance and more about sustainable infrastructure. And you have too much meaning and character to miss out on that level of fulfillment. So I love you so much. Catch you on the next one. Bye.